Senate. How does that bill that's now pending compare to what you just described? How far are they to your goals already?
Well, I think the fact that we're advocating for these is essentially a reflection of the fact that they're not there. There are a lot of amendments pending that have not been acted on yet. We, of course, can't predict if and how they will be acted on. But, these are things that we need to do that are not being done in the budget as it presently exists.
Yesterday, President Faber said that he wanted to provide greater tax cuts to Iowans, if that was important to the Senate. And I was wondering how you feel about that. Does that signal that some of the things that you want might be sacrificed?
Advocates for Ohio's Future does not have a position on tax matters. We have very strong positions on the reinvestments to try to make up what we lost in the recession, and on the additional investments that are needed to carry us forward. And I've tried to outline those for you this morning, however briefly. We believe, as I stated earlier, that the task before decision makers is to look at all needs and available resources and make priority decisions.
Well, so what's the priority? Is the priority tax cuts, or is the priority providing these services?
AOF's priorities, as I've outlined here, are the things that we've talked about this morning. These are our priorities.
So if it comes down to that and tax cuts, you'd like to see that over the next
These are our priorities.
To kind of follow up on that, you talked a little bit about elder reviews and that there needs to be additional funding there. Do you have a specific amount
Yes.
you're advocating for?
$20 million a year. Let's be clear, the history of funding for Adult Protective Services, or APS as we refer to it, has been, I want to say tragic. I mean, it's just been virtually non-existent. One year, it was $500,000 for the entire state. So counties got, a few $100 or $1,000 or whatever they got, a few thousand maybe. So we have to do better than that. Some counties have levies that are helpful, some don't. We can't depend on the vagaries of local assistance, and we strongly believe, and we've been working in conjunction with the statewide task force on this that came out of the MDR to arrive at a level that we think would provide services in all counties, and that's the level 20 million.
Just to follow up, you want them to allocate 20 million total, or 20 million more than it's already allocated in the budget?
There was very little already allocated. Okay. I think it's additional. Or is it 20? Total. Excuse me.
Okay.
But it's now on 3 years. Let me toss this to Beth for a minute for clarification.
Sure. The current budget proposal is $6.5 million per year. The Director of Job and Family Services has indicated that $30,000 per year would go per county, and the rest would go towards state administration and building the state infrastructure. In the meantime, we also have the loss of the tangible personal property tax reimbursement. That phase out will affect senior services at the local level by more than $3 million. So that little bit also supports APS as well as other senior programs. And while $30,000 is actually a bump up for all but 3 counties from what they were getting, it's still not enough to fund even a full-time worker in most counties.
As long as you brought up the TPP, where do we stand right now in terms of phase out? How close are we to seeing the phase out? And can you also respond to the fact that the legislature, at least in the House, seemed to think it important to deal with that issue when it came to the schools, but didn't deal with local government social services?
Well, I can't really talk about the details. I just know the impact on the senior services, and that's pretty much overall across the state, the 3 million over the 2 years in which they phase it out, and I believe it's because they phased it out more quickly than it was currently going to happen.
It's 17 million for child protection. It was 60 million for developmental disabilities. I can't remember the number for mental health and addiction services. It's somewhere, I'm thinking around 30. And I believe where things stand right now is, although the Senate may do something on this, but they filled the hole for education with money, Medicaid monies, dollars. And then with developmental disabilities, they made an agreement with the boards that they would use the monies that they would have lost to fund new waivers for people with DT at the local level. And so in the next, in the way it's written now, in 16 and 17, all of those local services will lose, and some of them will actually be done at that point. I mean, the money will be gone and there won't even be any more of a phase out. But as Beth says, here's, in terms of aging, they got 3 million. 3.5 million, and the loss in tangible personal property tax, and what that could pay for. You're back. You're back.
And the dollar figures you used, were those biennial figures or were those annual?
No, annual. Annual.
I'm not sure if you
3
said
million
this.
is across the biennium, the 3 million for seniors, it's more than 3 million.
I'm not sure if you said this, or the amounts we're seeking for children's services is 20 million per year. But as I think Gail has clarified, we expect to lose 17 because of the tangible profit tax, so that it's a net gain of very little money.
Well, it's not there is no gain. We, in child protection, we have lost, since 2009, over $53 million from the state between the tangible personal property tax phase out and cuts in the child protection line item in ODJS. And our caseloads aren't getting any smaller.
I did not try to catalog in the interest of time the losses that we've suffered since the recession. It's worth noting, I think, in the same spirit as Gail just said, children's services over $50 million. Our human services agencies, job and family service agencies in the state have collectively lost since 2007 in administrative funds $1 billion in the aggregate. Get it all together. Now that's a
That's
very.
not all from TPPT.
No. This is, no, I'm on a different track. I'm just saying that while we're looking at losses that Gail had brought up, the fact is that we've lost massive amounts of money in terms of our human services system. For example, in Hamilton County, we went from 1,600 employees to 700 some, 55% loss. That's a dramatic loss at a time when, as has been mentioned, caseloads are increasing with the recession because of Medicaid expansion. So, it's a very difficult position for human services to be in. We need to restore as well as move ahead.
A lot of the house, the case management issue that you guys are advocating for, the house took that out. So are you saying you want that back in, or do you want that approach in?
Yes, we actually testified earlier this week on House Bill 196, Representatives Armstead's and Derrickson's bill, that creates a case management system now. We don't have time to get into all the detail of that this morning. I'll be happy to talk to you afterwards. very supportive of some of it, and have some real reservations about some of the rest of it. But in answer to your question about re-importing that into the budget, yes, we support that.
The way the governor proposed it?
Yes, I would say yes. You know, there was a lot of ambiguity in the way it was proposed, but essentially to build it into the Job and Family Services system, yes.
Just to make sure I'm clear, is this the case management provisions that Governor Kasich had the big press conference on during the speech before human service organizations? Is that what you're
I
referring
think
to?
so.
Up in Lincoln County.
Yes, I think so, yes. The governor is a strong, as we know, I think, a strong proponent of people getting assistance to get into the workforce and move eventually toward some level of self-sufficiency and non-reliance on various public benefits. But that, as I said earlier, that's a long road.
In that proposal, he had wanted metrics of how agencies were gonna perform and how well they move people up and out of poverty. Is this something you guys, I mean, as you said, there's some ambiguity to that, but.
Well, we strongly support accountability. I mean, the problem has been, one of the great costs of the $1 billion, what I call the $1 billion reduction in funding. Now, that's not an annual figure, that's an aggregate figure, you know, over 6 or 7 years. But the cost of that has been that local agencies simply cannot do everything they're required to do, whether it's children's services, or whether it's getting people their food assistance on time, or getting their Medicaid application processed on time, or getting redeterminations done. We had a federal judge step in and say that was inadequate. And much less our OWF population. And this is worth a word, has just, the attrition has been incredible and tragic. I mean, we're down 60% plus over a 3-year period. And it's largely because people can only, OWF is for moms and kids. They can only participate if they work. And they can only work, many of them, if they get help in dealing with a variety of barriers they have. And the agency has been incapable of assessing them, much less providing the assistance they need. So, you know, if we have an expectation that we want people to move into that road of work and self-sufficiency, we really have to put some resources in place and make some investments.
Should the legislature be looking now at contingency plans in case the Supreme Court should strike down the Medicaid subsidies?